Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the Monday Night Show on Boro TV with me, James Hutchinson. A South Yorkshire double with headline performances from Academy Products and Lone Stars sees Boro get 6 points, while Assombalonga and Fletcher have been told to pack the bags. Boro fans, share your thoughts and views this week on the goings on at your favourite club. Joining me tonight and doing that will be Tony Guest and Joe Scott. Welcome to the show, lads.
Evening, Joe.
Even all.
You all right, James?
Yeah, I'm fine, mate. Nice to have you with us. Tony, we'll start with you first. The fun and games started early last Wednesday when the club released a statement on the morning of the Rotherham game announcing that Britt Assombalonga and Ashley Fletcher would no longer represent the club. One, did you support that decision, and what were your thoughts when you heard about it?
Yeah, totally 100% support it. It was no shock, really, at the end of the day that, you know, what surprised me was there's still a bit of the season left. We've got a really small squad, and then for Warnock, just to tell them to pack the bags and that they're not required no more. That was the shock part of it. But he's touched on it this weekend where he's saying this weekend he wished he'd done it earlier because something must have happened and brought things to a head for him to, you know, tell them that they weren't going to be involved anymore. For me, Britt came with a £15 million on his head. That wasn't his fault, you know what I mean, James? But, you know, I've tried to like him, I've tried to defend him, but he's never produced. He's never even produced for a £5 million striker, James. He's been really disappointing at his club, and as a footballer, he must be really disappointed that he's wasted, a good 4 years of his career just tossing it off while he was here. And Fletcher's leaving us with one memory, that amazing goal that he scored against West Bromwich Albion at the Hawthorns. And that's the only highlight of his career at the Boro I can think of. We were discussing earlier, all of a sudden, Boro fans, when he became injured this season, and we knew he was going to be out for a while, all of a sudden, he was every Boro fan's favourite player, and he hadn't even kicked the ball. And, you know, he's got himself fit. The club's offered him a new contract, and he's declined it. He said he wanted to wait. Well, you know, Warnock's no fool. The atmosphere in the dressing room must have been toxic. It must have been worse this season than last season. But what's been playing on my mind, as this only came about since Warnock's lads came in, what he signed in January, because, you know, when we had a small squad, things seemed to be ticking over quite nicely. So whether that's brought things to a head with these two players, I don't know. Whether they felt they should have been playing before the likes of Balassi and Cabano and Mendes Lang, I don't know. But these two games, which we've won, just proved that they're not going to be a miss to the club.
Interesting. Boro fans, let us know. Do you agree with what Tony said there when it comes to Ashley Fletcher and Britt Assombalonga? We'll look at the Rotherham game first, Joe. So, as well as Britt and Fletcher, there was no Spence, no Coulson, no Fisher. They were all absent. And we had 5 youngsters on the bench that were yet to start in a league game. And to be honest, we couldn't have made a worse start, could we?
Especially when I looked at the squad, Nathaniel Mendes Lang was not there because he must have picked up a knock in training. And you look at the bench and you got the likes of Jack Robinson, William Scocolo, Conor Malley, and Coburn and all that. The only senior player we had on the bench was Bettinelli, and I thought, doesn't look good here. And it didn't look good at all when, you know, when it comes to the 20th minute mark when Angus McDonald got the goal for Rotherham. And you thought, you know, it's going to be one of them games, you know, we're going to go and win this one's going to extend to possibly 6. But I think the game changer, I think, was the red card, which I thought, you know, it did look harsh, but there was a little bit of intent from Matt Crooks towards Van Hall. And like I said, that changed the game completely.
Yeah. And Tony, like I say, it was a game of a lot of talking points, and we'll talk a bit more in depth about the sending off in a little bit. Before then, though, what did you make of Duncan Watmore's disallowed goal after we went 1-0 behind?
Absolute crime. The goalkeeper, I know he had two hands on it, but he wasn't in control of the ball. It wasn't in his possession. If you make if you tackle someone, with the inside of your foot against his inside of the foot, someone's going to come out with a ball, and he exposed all the ball to Watmore, and Watmore just took it away from his hands. There was no infringement or nothing, and it was, like you say, couldn't believe it when the referee disallowed it. And then obviously you get the daft pundits coming on saying, yeah, it's a bit harsh, but he had two hands on the ball. His two hands were touching the ball. He wasn't in control of the ball, James.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Goal.
Yeah. And you mentioned there, Joe, about the sending off. Did you think it was a harsh red card for Matt Crooks, or do you think it was a justified decision by the referee?
It's hard to tell, because from the referee's point of view, it looked like Crooks elbowed Hall in the face. But when I looked at the replay, I thought it was pretty much just near enough clash of heads, but there wasn't in there from Crooks. I think that's what made the referee's mind up in the first place. And I don't know. I think if VAR would have came in, it would have been a lot different. But at the end of the day, I think it was just a game changer. And obviously, we got to the point when Savile's goal was absolutely brilliant for our point of view. So, and it changed the game, and we pretty much ended level at half time. And then after that, we pretty much dominated since then in the second half.
Tony, I'll get your thoughts on the sending off as well. But I'll tell you what I found quite amusing. At half time, as the teams were coming off the pitch, and Matt Crooks is saying to the referee, "Have you seen it back yet?" And I'm like thinking, bloke's refereeing a game here. He's not seen it back yet, mate. He's not been in the stands with you. What did you make of the red card?
Well, for me, if you watch it back from the beginning, you see that Matt Crooks having a sneaky look at Grant Hall. He can see exactly where Grant Hall is before he sets off for the ball. So when you've got, once again, the daft pundit saying he's got eyes, he's only looking at the ball, it's because he'd already looked to see where Grant Hall was. Even his peripheral vision would have been telling him exactly where the ball was and where Grant Hall was. And for the force, first of all, he led with his elbow, which he missed with, and then he obviously caught him with his head. There was definite intent, and it was serious and dangerous play for me, and he deserved exactly what he got.
Yeah.
Even the Rotherham manager Paul Warren was looking at it a bit confused. I mean, he was a bit confused, like why wasn't it? He
wasn't as confused as Grant Hall.
Everyone was. Like I said, that changed the game when he brought on Conor Malley, and that definitely changed for us because that added a bit of freshness to the game.
I felt, Joe, even though we'd gone down a goal early, which our goalkeeper never covered himself in glory again. Well, Archer, he came out, he was waving at someone or trying to catch something that wasn't there. If it had stayed on his line, it wouldn't have went in. But I felt, even, like you say, with Watmore's, even after the goal, even before Malley came on, I felt we were in control of the game. It was quite an open game. It was end to end, but I felt, it was one of them games that we were going to get back into. And like I say, the disappointment of Watmore's disallowed goal, I thought, oh, well, here we go. And then obviously Savile, absolute screamer, absolute. And he gets so much stick off the Boro fans, but, that was an absolute worldie he scored against Rotherham the other night.
Yeah. I mean, Tony, you mentioned there about George Savile. That was his 6th goal of the season. They've all been away from home. And you've said there he does cop a fair bit of criticism off Boro fans. Do you think that's down to the transfer fee that we paid, or do you think there's other reasons to go along with that, Tony?
I think that's the transfer fee that we paid, and I think it's just the role that he's asked to play, James. When we're playing in a 3 at the back and he's playing in a more advanced position, he's a different player. But when he's playing that older midfield player, the older midfielder, he tends to lose possession a lot, and I think he gets a lot of stick over that. But when he's pushed further up the pitch, he's an absolute worldie for me. He's an absolute brilliant midfielder for me.
And Joe, you mentioned there about the red card that Rotherham got. In fairness, it did change the complexion of the game, but the previous weekend we played QPR. They also went down to 10 men, and we created very little. That wasn't the case against Rotherham. So what do you think brought the difference about?
it's just the fact that we took our chances when it came, you know, and especially in the second half when Chibarak, who understandably got a fair bit of criticism up to that game because he hasn't scored in quite a while. It's like I say, we took the chance well, and we need to take chances when we're 10, but when we're 10 man up, going back to it, I think because of the QPR game, they went down to 10 men, and we had 2 chances to win that game for example, which obviously been to keep us safe, but we didn't know that killer instinct in front of the goal, and I think we did that against Rotherham when obviously Akpom took his chance.
Yeah. And Tony, you mentioned earlier on about Conor Malley. Obviously, Grant Hall's departure saw Conor Malley introduced to proceedings. What did you make of the Teesside Scholes' performance?
Just like when they're saying he's got the kids on the bench, and you see Conor Malley stood there, and you see this man stood there, this airy ginger kid, well, allegedly a kid, absolutely bristling, muscly. I thought, well, how old's he? You know what I mean? I was like, he's a kid, 16, 17, but he's 21-year-old, and I can't believe that was his Boro debut. You know what I mean? His senior debut, because I know he had the freedom of the New York Stadium. They were down to 10 men, but the way he just controlled the game. I think he made one misplaced pass all game, a through ball to Watmore. He put too much on it. But he absolutely bossed it. He was absolutely outstanding. He's skillful. He can take a player on. When was the last time we seen a Middlesbrough midfielder take a player on and then finish with a shot? He had a couple of shots, and it's just everything that we've been screaming out for. I know we've had false dawns before with Lewis Wing and Tav when he was a bit younger. Let's get him in. But let's hope, hopefully, this kid looks the real deal, and hopefully we can get 2 or 3 good seasons out of him before he moves on, because he did look a bit special.
Yeah, no, it was an impressive debut. And I'll ask you both, but I'll come to you first, Joe. Chuba Akpom scored what turned out to be the winner. It was the first win in 6 games for the Boro. We played well. I thought it was an entertaining game against Rotherham. We mentioned there about academy lads coming in and making their debuts, and Balassi and Cabano also had a big part of playing things. Out of all of those things, what pleased you the most last Wednesday?
Is that when what kept more of a threat going forward? With Balassi Cabano proved the main difference. Even though the 2 players that we've got on loan, they've been nearly the key threat for us going forward. And I know Balassi's out of contract at Everton at the end of the season, and some reports might be going back to him now he's a free agent. Cabano possibly may stay on at Fulham, because I think he's got a year left at Fulham, so it'll be more than likely he'll be staying on at Fulham come next season. But those 2 in particular, changed our ways completely going forward, and they've been the main difference, like either setting up chances or creating chances of their own. They obviously took them well.
Yeah. And how about for you, Tony? What pleased you most about what happened last Wednesday at Rotherham?
We had plenty of practice on the Saturday against 10 men, and so we had a bit more off on Saturday. It was last Wednesday. It was a very open game for 20, 30 minutes. Even after the sending off, Rotherham weren't going to sit back. They're desperate for the points, James. I felt Akpom had one of his best games in a Boro shirt, James. He was lively in the first half. He'd fluffed his lines a couple of times, but you can see the difference in Balassi and Cabano now. They're getting fitter. You know what I mean? It's making a hell of a difference to our play going forward. Cabano, I know Malley got man of the match off Sky Sports, but Cabano was absolutely out of this world. He absolutely tortured him, and like you say, it's because they're getting match fit. And, I don't know where we stand. I'd love them both to stay next season. Yeah, I don't think I've seen a footballer smile so much as Balassi. Do you know what I mean? He smiles his way through the game, and he's enjoying his time here. So hopefully Warnock can work his charms on him, and he'll stay for another season or so. But like you say, to keep them 2, it'd be an absolute friggin', top 6 nailed on next season if we keep them 2.
Yeah. Thanks for getting in touch, Mark Hibbert, who's watching in North Wales tonight. David Jackson, just picking up on what you said there, Tony. He said we can now move on that neither Brit or a son belong Brit or Fletchery, and especially Brit in terms of the record transfer fee. Our forward player's been cursed since his signing, but I think it's probably a long-standing. We've struggled for a lot of years with centre forwards, haven't we, Tony?
Yeah, but you just go back to Bernie Slaven, don't you? The last man to score 20 league goals for us, James, and that's how long it's been going on for. You know, we bought one of the best strikers in Europe, Ravanelli, and even he couldn't hit the 20-goal mark in the league. So it's a problem we've had for a long, long time, and we've had Viduka, we've had Hasselbank, you know, and like you say, they scored some great goals for the club, Alan Boxic. No one's managed to become a prolific goal scorer while they're at the Boro.
Yeah.
Players have come as prolific goal scorers and then died a death.
Yeah. Joe, what do you make today of some of the transfer rumours? And it's only speculation, but there's a few centre forwards that have been linked with making loan or permanent moves to the Boro this summer. What's been your take on those rumours today?
I think it's one of the key areas that we need to strengthen, obviously, come the summer. Obviously, we've known about Charlie White's situation for quite a while now, so it's just been a bonus Sky Sports that could be resurfacing again. You know, he's done well at Sunderland so far this season, but I think most Boro fans will not be concerned with me one season man. But look at Ivan Toney, for example, why he's progressed from League One to the Championship, and I think given that chance, I think White could perform. And you know, Liam Delap for Man City on loan, you know. Pep Guardiola described him as like an unusual striker who can be unpredictable at times, even though he's only 18. So I think the long move to us could help progress his career a bit. And from my perspective, I don't think we'll probably be giving up on Famara Jeju either come the summer as well. I think that's going to be the main talking point, I think, of the striker situation come the January window.
Joe, you mentioned Ivan Toney there. Well, I couldn't believe it when, you know, he'd been doing the business for Peterborough for a few seasons. And it just showed you, for me, it just showed you the ambition of our club where we're at the moment when he signed for Brentford. You know what I mean, James? I dare say he could have signed for a few clubs. And for us not to be able to compete with Brentford in the transfer market with £8 million for Ivan Toney, that just, you know, that showed me our intentions this season before the ball was kicked.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Tony, I don't think we'll be putting any transfer fees in that sort of region out this summer, will we? So we're going to have to box a bit clever when it comes to transfers, and I think it'll be loan players and free agents predominantly. Might be the odd cash signing, but I don't think there'll be much coming in the way of money, will there?
Yeah.
No, but if the likes of Charlie White, who's out of contract, you know, he's scored 30 goals now, so whether he comes back to the Boro, whether he can do that. He's done it in the lower leagues. Whether he can reproduce that in the Championship, does he want to do that with a Boro, or does he want to stay with Sunderland? You know, I think it'd be hard to convince him to come here if he went up with Sunderland and they put something decent on the table for him.
And another one of the goalkeeping situations. Well, we've been linked with Wayne Hennessy recently from Crystal Palace. I think he's out of contract there in the summer, and I think he's fallen down the pecking order since, you know, you've got the likes of Guaita, who is first choice, and recently bought in Jack Butland as well. So it's amazing to see, you know, a Wales international start like Hennessy falling down at the third choice goalkeeper. And I think coming to the Championship, especially for us, you know, with Bettinelli possibly on his way out in the summer, and I think Hennessy could be the perfect replacement, but we'll wait and see what happens with him.
Yeah, we will wait and see, Joe. There's obviously going to be a lot happening this summer. One thing that changed a lot from in the last 7 days from when we first spoke about it on the show last Monday night, Tony, is the plans for the European Super League. Were you surprised how quickly it all came tumbling down, Tony?
Yeah, because I thought they were I thought these clubs would have dug their heels in, and it was just relentless. You know, pressure off the media, pressure off the fans, pressure off all the governing bodies. You got Boris Johnson involved, you know what I mean? And when we'd gone off air, when we'd finished on here last week, I went in there and managed to catch Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville still whinging on about it. Do you know what I mean? So towards the end of last Monday night, Jamie Carragher, after he'd listened to what players were saying and what managers were saying, you know, he said he felt quite lifted. And even then, Monday night, he said, I can see this crashing down. He said it just needs one of them to go. And last Monday night, they just seemed to just fall like dominoes, James. It was one after another. And it had gone. But let's not kid ourselves. Not one of us, as a fan, wanted this European Super League. It was just total football snobbery. But us as fans have won nothing yet, James. Won nothing. The Premier League was formed to look after the Premier League. Them 20 clubs in the Premier League get the money out of the Premier League shared between them 20 teams. Nothing gets passed down over. You can talk about your parachute payments. You only get the parachute payment if you've been relegated out the Premier League. So you've got to get into it first.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing drip fed through the pyramid. When it was all the Football League before 92, all 92 clubs got looked after. So Liverpool, Arsenal, Everton, Tottenham, I can't remember the other team. There was 5 teams who formed the breakaway to leave the Premier League. And so, you know, it's them now. Them now who are getting the rewards of it, because I don't think none of them have been relegated. You know what I mean, James?
Yeah.
And it's left the clubs below them and the fans below them and the fans in the Premier just totally getting ripped off week in, week out. The Premier League, UEFA and FIFA were only vocal and didn't want this Super League because it would affect their income, it would affect their product, it would affected their profit. Yeah. So all this, you know, the fans like to think they've won, the fans have won. The fans have won nothing till we get decent kick-off times, decent ticket prices. You know what I mean, James? The only thing that's changed for us as fans is the facilities and the grounds have got better. But apart from that, the greed of the Premier League's still there and they're still ripping us off, James.
Yeah. No, good points made. Sorry. Mark Hibbert's been in touch, Joe, and he said the big 6 should be deducted points or fined big. What do you make of that? Oh, Tony, what did you say? They should be fined.
It should be fine, but it's not the players' fault, so we shouldn't be taking points off them because it's got nothing to do with the playing staff.
Yeah. What do you make of that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, I was a bit confused with all the whole situation. But I think, point deduction and possibly a big fan will probably be the result at the end of the day. But as well, going and looking at those clubs, obviously there's one team, I think I've said to you a few days beforehand, Manchester United, have been, I have a soft spot for them most of my life, obviously, because my dad has been supporting Man United when he was 7, obviously 60 years old now. And even I was embarrassed to find out that Man United were involved in this. And obviously, I think the manager, the players, and the staff were all thrown under the bus by this. And the only people I can blame is really the owners. I think Ed Woodward walking away from that club was obviously going to be starting. I won't be surprised if the Glazers will suffer severe consequences of that soon. But, like I said, with Man United being my second team, I think it definitely hurt me. Obviously, I still follow the club. Obviously, it's my second team. Obviously, we're being at the top of the list. And I have to say, I was embarrassed to see the different where they are. And obviously, with Chelsea, starting off the wanting away from the Super League and the West followed, I was happy with that. But I think there will definitely be consequences like points deduction and possibly heavy fines over the coming months regarding those 6 clubs.
Well, I think, lads, something will happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if within the next 12 months we get some sort of other issue involving these sort of clubs where they're trying to cream off more money, because that's all they're interested in, isn't it? They're not interested about the traditions of the clubs or the game itself. They're just in it for money and what they can take out of it. And I don't think the matter is.
You hit the nail right on the head, James. You hit the nail right on the head. It's just the owners. They don't care about the fans at all. They don't care about the game. And they're just in it for the money. And I've just seen this morning, there's a billionaire from Spotify the Swedish billionaire that owns Spotify. But the only thing is that he loves Arsenal, and he wants to buy Arsenal along with a couple of the legends that want to comply with the deal. You know, like to Patrick Vieira, Dennis Bergkamp, Thierry Henry, all contributing on the deal. I mean, you just want fan involvement at the club. I mean, we're lucky to have Steve Gibson, you know, chairman that obviously likes to care about the fans, and you know, other clubs from like bottom league, for example, who care about the fans. I mean, that's what you need. And I mean, to be fair, the only foreign owners that have done anything like that book in the Premier League are Leicester, because the owners there, the Thai owners there, care about the fans. You know, don't, and that's the main problem. They have to consider more about the fans than they do about the cash.
And what do you make of this, Tony? Zach Buckley's been in touch. Thanks for watching, Zach. And he said the 50+1 ownership, which is used in Germany, sounds ideal. Could it work in this country, though, Tony?
It could have worked about, what, 30 maybe 40 years ago, you know, before the Premier League came along, it could have worked. But now, these people are billionaires, you know what I mean? What did John Hall paid, I think, $1.5 million for Newcastle. What did he sell it on for? Do you know what I mean, James?
Yeah.
These clubs weren't worth the mega bucks that they're worth now. Even at the birth of the Premier League. And, you know, the only time this 50+1 is going to work is if your club's in trouble and the fans rally round and dig it out. Do you know what I mean? Like Joe said, we were lucky enough to have a Steve Gibson, but at the end of the day, Steve Gibson didn't do it by himself. You know, people put more money in than Steve Gibson, you know, and obviously left the club before Gibson did. That's why he's at the helm now. You know what I mean? We're lucky we've got a local lad, we've got a fan. You look back to where, like Joe said, them owners of Leicester, they've gone out the way to find out what the fans wanted and how to treat the fans. You know, they buy them bacon rolls, or they'll put a pint on at half time for them and things like that. And on the other hand, we've got the Venkies, who absolutely nearly destroyed Blackburn till Tony Mowbray went in. And it's all down to Mowbray, that Blackburn, for me, that Blackburn is still in the league, because he's must have explained to them about what football meant to them fans. You know, they're one of the few winners of the Premier League. And Mowbray has managed to, you know, turn them around. But we all say it, we've all whined like hell about Gibson, but let's just count our blessings now, because when something like this does happen, it's our club. It's clubs like ours that's going to get affected badly, no matter how much money your owner's got.
Yeah. I think Chris Andrews is agreeing with much of what you say there, Tony, saying about at the top clubs, they don't care about the fans when they're spending billions. It's not a game anymore. It's a business that's gone down the wrong path. And unfortunately, I think that's true, isn't it, lads? And we'll move on from that now and go and look at the Sheffield Wednesday game at the weekend for a bit of light relief. Joe, it's fair to say that we named an unchanged starting lineup against the Owls. And I think we're being kind when we say that the first half was probably average at best, wasn't it, Joe?
It was. Fair to say, you know, it was average, I think, until pretty much the only bit of action came, you know, when Balassi capitalised on a Julian Bernard mistake and made it 1-0 in the midpoint of the first half. But I think the only main talking point after that was obviously the penalty. I think from where I've seen on the highlights, it did look a soft penalty as far as I'm concerned, because Andre Green skipped through a couple of players and then ball goes in for a challenge. And it was completely soft, and I don't know why. It was completely soft, because I think, to be honest, I think Mark Bowler has had a couple of relapses in the last couple of games, because I think it was him that caused McDonald's header to go in, you know, against Rotherham, and then concedes a soft penalty. Because I think Bowler has had an off couple of games, and obviously Josh Windass, just like his dad, bangs away a spot kick. So obviously we were going there, you know, one all last time, and I think it was from that point, you know, where we need to introduce them like fresh players, and obviously Warnock did that in the second half.
Yeah, and Guesty, I mean, is it a concern for you that probably in our last couple of games, arguably our best players have been Cabano at Rotherham, and then at the weekend, Balassi against Sheffield Wednesday, and they're two lone players who, like you said earlier, hopefully we can keep one, if not both, during the summer. But it's going to be a long shot. But does that concern you that they're probably our best players at the moment?
Like you say, out of if we sold McNair or Fry and Cabano and Balassi stayed, it wouldn't be a problem. Do you know what I mean? I know that's like comparing apples with oranges, but you'd prefer them two to stay than any. If anyone else left, them two have been outstanding. I'd say Cabano's been really good the last 3 or 4 games for us. Balassi just wants to run with the ball, James, and he's an absolute joy to watch. And I think it was Watmore screaming for him to lay it off when he was running through. I think it happened a couple of times in the first half. He just wants to have a shot at goal, James, and he excites you. Once he's on, you just want him to get the ball because he excites you. We've seen better players than him at the Riverside, but he's one of the best ones that we've got at the moment, and he's just a joy to watch. And Cabano, the second half when he found his feet, they're just impressive. And if I was Gibbo, I'd be breaking the bank just as trying to convince him to stay. I think Warnock said, didn't he? I think he said that he thinks Balassi's made enough money out the game to just to stay here and enjoy it. And I hope he can convince him to stay, and hopefully Cabano, because like you say, Fulham can't be asking for enough money.
Yeah, no, I think like you say, both the players and the clubs have got big decisions to make this summer. What isn't in dispute, and Chris Andrews has been in touch again, Joe, is about the impact that Josh Coburn had when he came onto the pitch on Saturday. He thinks he could be Boro's missing key, and he believes that he should start in the last 2 games. Now, I know Neil Warnock was maybe erring on the side of caution after the game, but he certainly had a massive impact at the weekend, didn't he, when he came on?
Yeah, he certainly did. Bearing in mind as well, he only signed professional terms back in January, I think it was. So when he came on, he was already saying, Boro fans was saying, he's been off form, for the under 23s, the under 18s, prior to this, and he certainly worked well. He worked well. He got the goal he deserves, and hopefully, he's going to be a big threat in the air when it comes to aerial situations, and that's the sort of striker we need. And a little bit of fact as well. I think we signed him from the Mackhams as well when he was about 14 and 13. So I think we'll probably get the Mackhams lost is our game basically by the looks of things.
Definitely. I mean, Guesty, aside from the goal, what stood out for me was his enthusiasm, his work rate. It's like a breath of fresh air when you see how he was leading the line. I mean, for his goal, the corner that came, that led to the goal, that came from him putting a defender under pressure. And then late in the game, he was chasing Sam Hutchinson down. Who, I tell you what, he's uncompromising, that lad. And yet he's barging him over on the touchline. That's a sort of centre forward we've not seen for a long time, is it?
Like you say, the ball stuck. He held the ball up. He won aerial challenges. He was flicking the ball on, and like you say, the goal. The power which he generated with his head. It wasn't a gimme. You know what I mean? It was absolutely fantastic goal. And it's like you say, it's the type of forward play we've been wanting to see for a while. Warnock was asked the question, with that display from Coburn on Saturday, would it save him money in the transfer markets? And he said no. So whether that was just a bit of bluff, but he contradicted himself, Warnock, by saying the reporter asked him, will he be starting the next couple of games? And Warnock started going on about, well, it's a physical league, you know what I mean? He's only a young kid. He's 18, and they get knocked about a bit. Then in the next sentence, he's saying he's a big, strong lad. He can handle himself, and I think he just totally contradicted himself in 2 sentences. You know what I mean? Yeah. You've got to play him. Would we look at the goal Michael Owen scored against Argentina when he was a kid, and that's in the World Cup finals? Get the kid in, give him a chance, because, like you say, he's strong. He's good in the air. I dare say he's good on the floor. Give them a chance. Let's give these kids a chance while we've got nothing to play for, and see what they're really like. Because I was disappointed we never seen much more of Mally on Saturday. You know what I mean? And I'd love to see another hour of him. He was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah. Do you think there's any danger in MFC? Tom's been in touch. Thanks for getting involved tonight, Tom. And he said there, he scores 1 goal. He's the next big thing. LOL. Do you think there's a danger that people may go overboard on Josh Coburn? And would you maybe err on the side of caution? Or do you think, you know what, if he's good enough, get him involved. He needs as much game time as we can give him. And we've got nothing to lose at the minute, Tony.
As a striker, you've got to get him in. I totally get what Tom's saying. You know, no one's saying he's the next big thing. What was he called? I think Danny Graham scored in his debut, didn't he? We all know. Yeah. All know what happened to him. You know, so you've got to play him. You've got to find out whether this kid's going to be good enough. And if he gets 2 or 3 goals before the end of the season, you've got to start with him. You've got to give him a chance. You know, they say just drip feed them in. The more you drip feed the kids in, the more hungry they become. But if they're good enough, if they're going up against some roughy-toughy centre-back from Sheffield Wednesday with lots of experience and scoring goals and, like you say, bossing them, pushing them off the ball, you've got to look at it. You've got to look seriously at it and give them another start. Give them a start.
Yeah. And Joe, I mean, it's been a great week for our academy. You've had the contributions of Malley and Coburn. You've got other prospects just under the surface like Callum Kavanagh and others. They could all have a massive role to play in the future of the club. And with money being tight, it is a bonus. And we don't want to put too much pressure on these lads, but they could have a huge part to play in the future of Middlesbrough Football Club, couldn't they?
Definitely do. You look at the likes of Sam Verhaeren, for example, who's been on form really, you know. Obviously, when he scored in the FA Cup, since he went back to the under-23s, he's been flying in the assist column and goals. And they've had a lot of decent things on William Skakolo as well, who's another French fullback, another one who we brought from Sunderland, by the way. I've heard a lot of good things about him, and obviously you said about Kavanagh as well. And going back to Coburn and just what we need to push in further. I remember the last couple of years we did that was Sam, and his career took off after that. And so it's definitely a lot of good players in our academy. It's just build them up all the time and when to use them the right way.
Yeah.
We've got some good young players to come back off loan as well, Joe. And we've got Nathan Wood to come back. We've got Stephen Walker to come back. You know, they've all been sent out on loan for a reason. So, the future could already be within the club, James.
Yeah. And before we move off the Sheffield game and look ahead to Luton at the weekend, Tony, do you think it's any coincidence that since 2 players have left the club in Fletcher and Assombalonga that we've had 2 wins, or do you just think that's a coincidence?
I think it's not. Like Warnock touched on it on Saturday. He said the atmosphere in that dressing room is absolutely fantastic. He said it's electric. He said, I really wish I'd have done it earlier. I don't think he's got a problem with Fletcher or Britt. You know what I mean? He said he totally understands their position, that, you know, they're out of contract. They don't want to be getting a serious injury. You know, he did mention a player who's been out. I can't remember who the player was, who's been out all season with a cruciate. You know, he'd done that in the last.
Yeah, it was Joe Bennett at Cardiff, got injured. He's out of contract.
Joe Bennett, so you know, is he going to get a club when he's fit? So he said, I totally understand their position. So I don't think there's any bad blood there. What we haven't touched on it yet, but what surprised me is the Rotherham game when Fisher wasn't involved. Now, is Fisher injured, or is Fisher one of these rebels in the clique that want to be away from the club?
I think he took a knock in training a couple of weeks ago. I think so.
I know he took a knock in the game before. He took a knock and he went off injured, didn't
he? Yeah.
So, because he hasn't done too bad since he came in. I know he's not tearing up no trees. He had a great game against Norwich, but he's a steady defender. And obviously, social media starts getting set on fire on Saturday when there's no Fisher, Coulson, or Spence. And then all of a sudden, they're the rebels. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It surprised me, that one, Tony, if he was involved. Bearing in mind, he only joined the club in January, and it was
January,
that signed him. So that would surprise me. But like you say, you never know.
as I was saying as well, I think, sorry, James, I think, with Fisher, I think obviously when he went up against QPR, I think that was the reason he was going to be out for a couple of weeks, because I think it's the overall collision from that. And the same, like I said at the start of the show, with Mendes Lang, I think he was injured in training. I think what Warnock said, he'll be available for the last 2 games of the season. So I think it's just definitely not going about. And I think with Coulson, Fisher, and Mendes Lang, I think if they're available, obviously for the next 2 games, so be it.
Yeah. Well, that leads us nicely onto the Luton game, Joe. And Tony, it's our penultimate fixture of the season, our last away day in this behind closed door season. It's going to take something to match last season's encounter though at Kenilworth Road, isn't it?
Yeah, God, look where we've come since then. You know what I mean? We were so full of hope and optimism. The football we played that night under Woodgate, it was unbelievable. Then it was all downhill from there, wasn't it? That was, we should have came away from there with a comfortable 4-1, 4-2, Brit smashing penalties, over the friggin' Luton Airport. Absolutely shocking, but yeah, it's going to take it'll have to be some game to match that game, James.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Joe, I mean, Luton are on track for their best league finish since 1992. Came from 2-0 down yesterday to win 3-2 at Bristol City. And Nathan Jones, he's picked up the pieces. He left Luton, went to Stoke, had an ill-fated spell there, but he's gone back to Luton, kept them up last year, and he's built on that good work this season, hasn't he?
He has. I think he's been a key figure, because I think when he took over as manager, there was in League Two, and he built them up, from promotion from promotion to close enough promotion in the Championship. I think he left a big point of League One season to go to Stoke, which unfortunately didn't work out for him. But he went since he came back, because I think it was Graham Jones who was in charge at Luton, when he left.
Yeah.
And then Good Jones got sacked, he came back and he steadied the ship. And I think they're settling for a mid-table point of the season, because I think last season they were struggling for relegation, but he's still brought them back up and telling it to that well-oiled machine, that brought them back-to-back promotions. So it's done well for them, But looking at their players, you look at James Collins, for example, being one of the prime examples of where Luton are at the moment, and I think he's going to be one of the strikers that's going to be heavy linked with a few big championship clubs, hopefully come the summer. So I recommend James Collins will be the one player that we're going to have to watch out for on Saturday.
Yeah, and Tony, bringing it back to the Borough, would you make any changes to the starting line? I mean, it was the first time for a long time at the weekend we made no changes to the starting 11. Do you think it'll be the same against Luton, or will Neil Warnock tinker about with the lineup?
I can't see him messing about at the moment, James. I think he'll start with the same 11, because I think that's the only 11 he can trust to start at the moment. You know what I mean? So I can't. The only way he'll make changes if injuries or anyone's carrying anything, and you know what I mean. I think that's going to be his starting 11 till the end of the season now, James.
Yeah,
I feel now now the dressing room has been cleared of Fletcher and Britt. I don't know, it might be just me the way I'm watching it, but I think Akpom is playing with a bit more freedom, you know what I mean? I don't think he's as... He seems a bit more confident at the moment. Maybe it's because he hasn't got either of them two on his case. So, he's been absolutely dreadful all season, but it'd be nice to see him finish with a flourish, James.
Definitely. Go on then, Tony. You can have first shot. What do you reckon the score will be at Luton on Saturday?
Oh, 6-5. No. 2-1 the Boro, James.
2-1 the Boro. Go on, Joe. What do you reckon?
It will be one of them games, like you say, Luton have got now to play for now this season, and we're going into the last game against them. We'll probably will be down by then, judging by the result. Go against them, with maybe possibly with Rotherham, for example. So we look at the Luton.
Oh, he's gone.
both teams start to play for the season, so I'm recommending, we're possibly going for a 2-1 win for the Boro.
Oh, the viewers are agreeing with you, lads. Got Leighton McDougall 3-0 up the Boro. Chris Andrews has gone 3-2 Boro, with Coburn getting another 2 goals. So a lot of optimism amongst Boro fans. All will be revealed, as they say, next week. Unfortunately, everybody, that's all we've got time for this evening on the Monday Night Show here on Boro Fan TV. We've reached the end of proceedings. Many thanks to Tony and Joe for joining me. And as always, thanks for everybody out there for watching. I know there's been one or two issues on Facebook tonight, so we've only gone out on YouTube, unfortunately, so we're not on Facebook. Hopefully, we'll be back next week on both platforms. And it's going to be Tuesday night. The show's going to be out next week. So we'll look back on the Luton game and ahead to the Wickham final match of the season next Tuesday night. But until then, from Tony, Joe, and myself, and everyone at Boro Fan TV, good night and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.
Up the Boro.